This is something a little different. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is my weekly vlog number 122 for Monday, July the 1st, 2019. Happy Canada Day to all my Canadian viewers. Yes, it is Canada Day, or it used to be called at one time Dominion Day, but it is the day that we mark each year where Canada became a country. And I guess this is our 152nd birthday. Yeah, 152nd birthday. So in the big scheme of things, we're still a pretty young country. Although people were here back in the 1400s. And that's not counting the indigenous people, of course. But anyways, happy Canada Day. So what's up today? Well, you can see behind me, I have finally finished what's called the dynamic quilt, dynamic dual quilt. Actually, it is not the dynamic dual quilt officially. Its real name is Roman tile because it comes from a pattern, and I call it the dynamic dual because that is what the class was called that I took this in. And this is also this quilt has another name as well. I call it the quilt from hell because to make this quilt there's over 420 2.5-inch half square triangles, and that took a lot of work. It is a very large quilt. You're only seeing a part of it. It's about a queen size, I would say. And I did machine quilt this, and I did it on a long arm, and so you can see the patterning up here. It was a simple pattern that goes across the whole quilt. It's called edge to edge. It was kind of a spiral, I can't say the word. It was kind of a meandering kind of design, and I did it in a very light gray thread, so it's fairly subtle. And to see the back of this, I really love this fabric that I got for the back. This was such a neat fabric to work with. Now you can see the quilting not on the video very well because, as I said, I used a light gray thread, and so it blends right into the background fabric. But if you were to see it in person, you could see the it's a loose thread. You would be able to see the quilting on it. This one I am putting into the Guild Quilt Show come this November. I don't think they're being judged. I wouldn't win a prize because there are people out there that are far better quilters than I am, and there are flaws. As in every quilt that I make, there are flaws. But then somebody told me once, only God can make a perfect quilt. So that's our excuse for not having perfect quilts, I guess, because then we'd be like God, and we can't be like God, can we? But anyways, I'm really thrilled with the fact that it's done. I'm really thrilled with the fact that this one was a challenge, and I met the challenge, and I learned how to do mitered borders on this, which I really love now that I know how to do them. I think most of my quilts are going to have mitered borders. It just gives such a great finished professional look to a quilt. And I did it on a long arm. So I've got several more quilts that I'm getting ready to take to the long armor. And when I say I'm taking them to the long armor, they're not doing it. I am doing it. It's not free motion. You trace basically a pattern with a laser light, and the needle does wherever you go with this laser light on a big piece of paper that has a pre-drawn pattern called a pantograph. And that's what I'm doing right now. Come September, we're taking a free motion 2-day intensive free motion boot camp course with the long armor, where we will learn how to do free motioning on our quilts. So that's another level up, and we'll see after we've taken that course whether or not I'm able to manage that. I was going to use the word master, but I don't know. I think it takes a long time to master that skill, if you ever absolutely master it. Some people do, I guess. So anyways, I'm really thrilled with that. I did make a table runner, which I forgot to bring out of my sewing room, so I'm just going to run and get that. Okay, here it is. It's called the Swirl Table Runner. And you can see I used my butterfly fabric. And this one, I added those butterflies you see up close. I think I got it upside down. No, I don't. Yeah, I think it should actually go this way. It really doesn't matter. I had it right the first time. I like the butterfly in the middle to stand up the right way, but you can see those butterflies. I embroidered those some time ago, actually. I did them at the retreat we went to in the late spring, and I added those. And I did my mitered borders again, and I added the border to this. So this was more or less, I was just playing around with a pattern. It was kind of a neat pattern for cutting the parts that go in the center. Doesn't take long to do it, and I just want to see what the pattern was like, and this was basically fabric I had laying around. I think it turned out pretty good. The only thing I'm a little disappointed about, and here's the back of it, I love this fabric. This is the same fabric that's going to be featured in my show quilt, which I haven't got. I have to take over, I have it all borders on it now. I have to take it over to the long armor, and I'm going to have to quilt it. And I think that's a project for this week coming up. So when I get that done, I'll show it to you. But the one thing, I don't know why, well, I think I do know why now. This doesn't lay flat. And I've asked people, when you're holding it like this, you couldn't tell. But when you put it on a table, the borders actually sort of warp up. And I pressed the heck out of it to get them to lay down straight, but that didn't seem to work. But I think what happened was, if you notice the quilting, I have a combination of a wavy line and a straight line. And that's just with walking foot that I did that. And it was accident that I have a straight line in it. The reason it was an accident was because I had switched my stitch setting over and for some reason to a straight stitch, and then I thought when I started again I was going to have the wavy line. I didn't, and I got a quarter of the way down the runner and realized I was doing a straight stitch. So rather than pull it all out, I thought I'd incorporate it as part of the design, because after all, this was not a piece that it was an experimental piece, so that's okay. But because I did it with straight line stitching set in the standard mode, I think it was too tight. And when you're quilting tends to pull your fabric together a little bit more. And I think if that had been a wider stitch length, I wouldn't have had the puckering problem. Now, I might be able to fix it if I throw it in the washing machine and the dryer and that, and then press the heck out of it again with steam. I'll see. But right now, it's just sitting on a little table we have in our rec room. I don't know if it's worth the effort or not. Yeah, just lay it there and pretend it's supposed to look that way. It gives it a little character. Okay, so that takes us to the channel of the week. Yes, I'm sorry for those of you that don't quilt or sew. This is a quilting YouTube channel, but I really like it. This week's YouTube channel is called Quilt Roadies, and yes, as the name suggests, this is about quilting. What I like about this, though, is that not only is it about quilting, but you get tours of quilt shops in Oregon and Arizona, and you get to see some of the countryside, because the people who put this up, they do a lot of traveling in their RV. And also, it's got both quilting and handicrafts, and it's also got hand embroidery. So if you're interested in those things, you might want to check out Quilt Roadies. So the link to that is below, as is the link to Stephen and Walter Live. The topic this past Sunday was travel, our experiences, our evolution as travelers. We shared a lot of stories with people who were viewing it. They shared stories of their adventures as well, and so we just talk about a whole lot of things about traveling. So if you didn't catch us live, it is in the replay on the channel, so you can check it out there. And next week's topic, we haven't picked it yet, so we're looking for suggestions. So if you want to send us a suggestion, just put it in the comments below here, or in the comments below this past week's live broadcast, and we'll consider it. Okay, and what else is in there? The link to, yeah, it should be there. Looks like I'm missing it on my notes, but I will put the link in for this week's book. And also there's a link below for my blog, not vlog as in V, but B as in blog. I have rejuvenated this because you know that I'm no longer on Facebook, and on my blog I'm sharing basically pictures of my quilts and different projects, and I look forward to you taking a look at those, and feel free to make comments on there. So the link to my blog is in the notes below. Also, I may extend the blog further. It may go beyond my projects. I may have little, thoughts of the day or whatever. I'll see if I'm getting a response. If people are checking it out, then I'll do more with it. If it's not something people are interested in, then I probably won't bother. So we'll see. It all depends on you. Okay, so what's pissing me off this week? Amazon sellers. Not Amazon per se, but Amazon sellers. These are third-party salespeople that put their merchandise on Amazon. And what's pissing me off is just the general kind of thing that, consumer beware. I ordered a little device that's for quilters for winding up your binding. Binding you make, that's the little border thing you see, the darker border around this quilt up here. Get my finger in the right spot. There. Okay. That's basically, you make a very long strip by attaching pieces of fabric together, folding it, ironing it, etc. And it goes all the way around to finish off the raw edges of your quilt. They can get very difficult to handle because you've got a really, really long strip of fabric. So there's this device I saw on, I think it was Mr. Domestic, and I wrote to him and asked him what it was called, where I could get it. Well, somebody on Mr. Domestic gave me a link to Amazon for it. And there it was, and I went to Amazon.ca, the Canadian version, and it was about $70 Canadian for this little thing that winds up your binding so you can use it. And it's a very simple device, really. You could probably adapt something in your house for it if you were clever enough. I'm not. So I ordered it. It was free shipping because it was on Prime. So I thought, okay, it's expensive, but it is something that I will use, so I'll get it. Then Mr. Domestic himself sent me a different link, one that was to a shop that I watch their videos as well, called the Fat Quarter Shop in the States. So I went to that link. Wouldn't you know it, the price they wanted for it was $17.99 US. But I figured, yeah, but they'll nail me on shipping. No. Shipping was $8 to Canada. So you put the two together, it came out to something like $25.99 US. With the exchange rate, it comes to $35. Half the price I'm paying for this other one. So I ordered this one too. See who gets here first. I figured one for me, one for Walter, kind of a deal. But then what really annoys me is I got my tracking information for the one that I ordered off of Amazon. Now, I ordered it on Amazon.ca. The company I ordered it from had Manitoba in the title. That's one of our provinces in Canada. It was in Canadian dollars. I assumed it was coming from Canada. I assumed wrong. You know what happens when you make an assumption? You make a ass of you and me. So I'm the ass because it's coming from somewhere in the States. It's coming by U.S. Postal Service, which is fine. I'm not in any rush. They gave me approximate dates of when I'd get it, something like between July the 4th and July the 16th. Okay, a bit of a window there, but that's okay. But what annoys me is they made the listing look like it was coming from my country. If I had seen that it was coming from the States, I probably wouldn't have ordered it. I definitely wouldn't have ordered it if I had already known about the Fat Quarter Shop and its prices. Oh, and the Fat Quarter Shop has shipped it already too, and this coming by U.S. Postal Service. They seem to suggest that you're going to get it within a week. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. So it's a race now. Who do I get first? But what really pisses me off is how, whether this was intentional or not, it's still misleading. I mean, I read all the information about it, and nowhere did it say it was not from Canada, that the supplier was not from Canada. The other problem is sometimes you have to be careful. When you order things that come through the States, you can get nailed with duty. I don't think this will happen with this device, but it could. So my $70 little binding winder could cost me a lot more if it gets hit with duty. all because I thought it was coming from Canada. I guess maybe I should be pissed off with myself. I should have been more careful. But how do you know these things? And also, when it's being sold on Amazon, I don't know about you, but I tend to trust them because I've always had very good luck with Amazon and very good service. So it's really not Amazon's fault. It may not really be the fault of the supplier. It's kind of a combination of things. But anyways, the buck stops here, I guess. And so we'll see. Now, I did read one review, or Walter read a review, because, you know, after I told him this, he immediately went into research mode, and he always comes up with great information for me, stuff that maybe you probably should know, but at times I just don't want to know. And he says, yeah, he read a couple of reviews on it, and one person was complaining that they had paid this amount of money for the thing, and they thought it wasn't worth the money because it was so cheaply made. Yeah, and it was made in China. Well, everything's made in China, so I mean, like, go figure. So live and learn. So this little device, I'm getting 2 of them now, so it's over $100 for something that's basically. Could I live without it? Yeah, probably. Did I want to live without it? No. So we'll see. So that's what's pissing me off this week. Okay, let's move on to product reviews and what's new. Don't have any products to show you, but something I've noticed. I told you already about my blog. Well, there's a facility on YouTube called Community. I'm not absolutely sure how it works, but I think what I gather from what I read is this is a spot where you can have sort of a public forum with your viewers that is kind of separate from the videos. It's kind of like a chat room in a way. It's not live, but you can post things in there. So if you're subscribed to my channel, look for the tab that says Community. It's not actually a tab, it's a word and a line kind of a thing, but you know how it says home, video, playlists, and there's one about, and there's one that says Community. Give that a click. I have written a message in there, but I'm experimenting with it. I don't know if it's going to be of any use or not, but I thought, well, why not? It's there, it costs nothing, give it a shot. So, if you are interested or you know about this feature, take a couple of seconds, if you've got a couple of seconds, and write a message in there. See how that works out. Okay, so book review. This is an oldie, and this is really geared towards scrapbookers and card makers. It's called Color Blocking Idea Book. And I remember way back, probably 15 years ago, color blocking was all the rage. And this is what color blocking is. It's basically sketches showing you different kinds of ways you can lay out your scrapbook page. Now, this may seem pretty obvious to a lot of people how to do this, especially experienced scrapbookers. But when you're first starting out in scrapbooking, you may be a little lost as to how to place your pictures and your photos. The thing about color blocking is it's a very clean, very modern look, very contemporary. So this book gives you lots of ideas for layouts. Now, I think with a little bit of imagination and creativity, you can extend what's the word I want? All tongue-tied today. You can extend the ideas that are here to possibly other projects. I'm pretty sure you could extend this to card making, and you could also extend this to probably mixed media as well. So it's basically a book that'll give you some theory behind composition and layout, which I think is sometimes helpful, especially if you're just getting started out into scrapbooking or mixed media or card making. Also, sometimes we just need some ideas, something different to try and do. Now, I paid $29.99 for this book, according to the back of it. And, I'm just consulting here. There's a little warning. It says, warning, this color blocking book has known side effects, such as only being able to see things in squares, dreaming in rectangles, and proven to be highly addictive. You should consult your doctor before reading this book. Ha ha. So a little bit of a joke there. I do remember at the time that I got this book, there was a whole series of templates you could buy, and guess what? I did buy them. I think I've gotten rid of them a long time ago. I had quite a few of them where they were like overlays. They were made from plastic, kind of like stencils, but they had like all of these things, this kind of thing, already made in these plastic. And I guess the idea was you laid it down on your scrapbook background paper, and you could take a pencil and draw around and then use it as a guide for cutting out your pictures to the right shapes and put them on. I think I bought all of them at the time because, you know me, can't have one, gotta have it all if it's in a set. And I don't think I used it much at all. That's probably why they're no longer around here. I think I got rid of them in one of the great purges I had a couple of years ago of my craft room. So back to the book. I paid $29.99 for it. Where can you buy it? Can't get it on Amazon. I did find it though on eBay. Now on eBay they only want $9 for it. That would be US. But shipping was $18.86. Okay, so if you're really desperate for something like this, go to eBay, pay the money for it. But I'm pretty much sure that you can probably find free resources on the web or on YouTube that would talk about the same kind of idea as well. But I had it in my stash and I thought I'd blow the dust off it and show it to you. So that's the book of the week. Okay, so this takes us to the next part in my new series on the iCraft kits, and we're making the box scrapbook. And so now I have added my background papers and a little belly band, which right now is falling off, but that's because I haven't put anything in this yet, which will actually make the sides a little bigger and will hold the belly band better. At least that's my theory. So here's how I decorate it. So now that we've put the box scrapbook together, I want to talk about how to do some basic decorating of it. And what I mean by that is adding your background papers. Now, although this is fairly simple, it can get very complex and confusing because there are quite a few different pages that you're working with, both the front and the back. So I want to show you the method that I used to organize what I wanted to put together. So I'm just going to move this out of the way for a moment, and I'm just going to take you to this one. This is my prototype. Now, if you remember, in the package, there were 3 box scrapbooks that came in the kit. So you made 3 different ones, a white one, a black one, and a craft one. So I took the white one, and I used my Cricut to cut out my background papers for each of the panels. And then I saved those as files on my Cricut for when I want to cut my decorative papers. This did get a little confusing, however. First of all, I went to the back of the package and looked at the dimensions, and I'll just show you that. Here's the package in the package back, and it has the dimensions, but these are not accurate, I found. I'm not sure how they have measured what's on here, but they do not correspond exactly with the actual box. So I discarded that and took out a ruler and measured the pages myself. And on this particular one, to keep me organized, I cut the pages out, the background papers, just out of black cardstock, and then I wrote with a white Signaball pen the dimensions on each of these flaps, so I knew what I needed to cut. Now you'll notice, I'll talk about this in a minute, so you can see in here I have all the pages marked. Now some things that I did a little differently with the final version of this from this prototype, and that's what I'll call it, a prototype. What I did was, first of all, I rounded all of the corners of the papers, the background papers. I just like the look of that. That's not necessary. You don't have to do it. But another reason why I did do it, besides it looked pretty, is the fact that the actual foundation pages themselves on many of these, on the outside ones anyways, had already been rounded. So I just wanted to keep it in the same style. The other thing too is you'll notice here I don't have my paper going all the way across the spine. Now, there's a couple of ways I could have handled this. At first I thought, well, I don't mind this little piece showing up, but on the outside of the box you have it showing up too, so that's not very good. It doesn't look finished. So what I did was I adjusted my measurements so that I cut one piece of cardstock that would cover both the spine of each page and the whole page itself, and then all I had to do was take a ruler and score down the line where the fold is, and I could see, just because I cut these 1/4 of an inch smaller than the actual page so I'd have a border, I could see the score lines, and I just put my ruler along those and went over my bone folder a couple of times, and that gives me the crease. Another way you could do it is make these two separate pieces. You could have a separate piece of cardstock covering the spine and a separate one for the flap. It's up to you, whatever you would like to do. I thought it would save me a little bit of time if I did it this way. Plus, I find that it does reinforce the spines, or the score lines actually, because these are getting folded back and forth a lot, and they could crack through. And that's good. I just spit on it. Okay, don't do that. All right, so that's how my prototype all went together. Now, I was thinking about how I was going to hold this shut. And oops, make sure I fold it up right. Okay, just give me a second here. All right, here we go. Now, of course, doing it as a prototype like this, you don't have to, but I just wanted to make sure that I had my cuts right in my Cricut for this. And I did have to do some adjusting because I did make a few mistakes here and there. And here's another example. You can see that this outward part did not get covered. In my other version that I'll show you in a minute with the actual papers, background papers on it, I did cover that. So just let me get this shut up properly here. Okay. Now, one other thing. This particular flap, you can see, has this little curve in it. So I couldn't really program that into the Cricut. Maybe you can, but I'm not clever enough to figure out how to do that. So I just cut it out as a square panel, and then I used this as a template and just drew the line, traced the line onto my cardstock and cut it out from there, and that seemed to work okay. You have a lot of surface to cover on this, and of course, keeping it closed, I could have, on the back of it, buried a piece of ribbon underneath it and just pulled it up like I've done on previous projects and tied it into a bow, but I thought I'd do something different, so I created a little belly band out of a couple of strips of paper, and I've already written my dimensions and my measurements on this, so when I programmed them into the Cricut I would get it right and I would know where to fold, and that just slides over this and it keeps everything secure. Now, on the final version I intend to embellish that by putting something up here in the center of it. I don't know what yet, but that'll be for the next segment. So now that I had my prototype, I was able to cut out my papers and decorate the box. So you can see here, I picked some graphic 45 paper. It's called, let me just look. It comes from this pad, which is an older pad from graphic 45, and it is called Botanica Bella, and it's kind of a nice paper pack. I have used some of this before, and there's elements in here that I think I can use as embellishments when I do the embellishing part of this, but right now I just have the basic papers on this. Let me move this out of the way. So here it is with the background papers on it. There's my belly belt, or belly band, sorry. So that just slides off. And then you can see I chose the papers to make this two different colors here. And it just opens up as the other one did. Now, this particular, they call it a box scrapbook, has a lot of real estate in it, as you can tell. And it is going to take you some time just to do this part of it, and it's going to take some time to do the embellishing, and that's why I did not do a process video for this, showing you how I attached all these papers and cut them. I think we all know how to cut papers to fit something like this. It might be better to put your papers on this before you assemble the album, but because I want to show you how to assemble the album, I didn't bother to do that. It's not that difficult to do it once the box is assembled. It's up to you what your preferences are. I do have a few little gaps in here, which I might just put some washi tape on when I get to the embellishment stage of it. And of course, you can see all of my background papers have had their corners rounded, and I went around the edges of the papers and of the foundation pieces with some brown ink, just to give it a bit more distressed and finished look. Anything else that I did with this? Well, the only problem that I ran into was keeping my cut pieces straight. So instead of cutting them all at one time and then placing them in here, I did it in sections. I started with the outside of the box first and worked from flap to flap to flap. That way I kept my papers straight. Otherwise, you might not know, because you don't have the measurements written on each panel, where they're supposed to go, because some of these measurements are very close to each other. For example, some of my measurements were 5 by 5.25 inches, and another one might be 5 by 5.5 inches. And when you just look at them without taking a measurement, you can get pieces mixed up. So I found it was easier just to do it in small little batches, one flap at a time sort of a thing. I did use double-sided tape to hold these down, but you could use wet glue. You do want to use an adhesive, though, that is fairly strong, because, again, there's going to be another layer of embellishments on top of all these pages, and if you give it to somebody as a gift or you're showing it to somebody, it is going to be opened and closed a lot, so you don't want any of your pages falling off. So that's how I decorated this particular box, scrapbook box as it's called. Now make sure I get the pages in the right way. That one has to go down that way. Then these ones go this way. I mean, the more times you do this, the less problems you're going to have in closing it up. That one's, yep, see, got to look at your spines. See, this one doesn't have a spine. This one does, but it's a small one. That's not where it goes. It's the same size as... Oh yeah, I see what I've done. Yep, the more times you fold it, the better, the easier it's going to get. Things are just going to fall right into place. That one goes over that way, and this one goes this way. Another thing about using the papers in this, the background papers, is that it makes your box a little stronger. Okay, I'm still not getting this quite right here. What am I doing wrong? Okay, look at the size of these. One goes up that way. That one goes this way. That way. This one comes over, over. And that one comes down. There you go. And then, of course, this is the belly band that holds everything together. Now, you can see that I've got a little bit of stuff popping out over the edges here. That'll just come with time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a rubber band around this. Now, I could have made the belly band a little bit more snug, but I figure that once I get some more embellishments inside it, I need some expansion room, and that'll tighten it all up too, and that's going to make everything stay together a little better. I think I would just have to score that a little bit better as well to make it stay in. But anyways, that's the stage we're at now. And so in the next segment, I'm going to show you how I'm going to embellish this particular box scrapbook. Okay, so next week I'll be looking at doing the final embellishment of each of those pages in there, and probably adding some little inserts and things like that. So that'll be on next week's vlog. So what were what events in the past week? Well, Not much. I already talked about the quilt, finishing that up. That was a biggie in the week. Update with my mom. She's got her new teeth now, and as I predicted, she's not complaining that much about them. I guess they are, she's having a little difficulty putting them in and taking them out, but that'll take some time to get used to it. And she says she has some soreness in her mouth, and that's to be expected. So I imagine the dentist will come out and take a look at it to do some final adjustment. I told my mother if we had not heard anything from them, by about Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, then I'll give them a call and see what is going on when they're going to do that. Because I know they are going to do that. That's just part and parcel of the procedure. She did have a little problem with one of the PWS workers. It's one my mother doesn't particularly care for, but one day she doesn't like somebody, the next day she does. So I never know what is actual fact. But this woman helped her get her teeth out, and she hurt my mother, according to my mother. She was really, really rough. There's another PWS worker there. Is it PWS or PSW? PSW? No, I always get the term mixed up. A personal care person, whatever they're called. Anyways, she was very good with my mother with it, according to my mother. So my mother was telling me some other things about this particular person that was a little rough with her, and I'm a little concerned. You do hear things about elder abuse and things like that in nursing homes, although in this nursing home, I can't say too much about how great they have been since my mother's been there. The service has been excellent, the care, the compassion, the whole bit. So I take what my mother says with a little bit of caution. My mother does have a way of exaggerating certain situations, but on the other hand, I'm not going to ignore it either. So I told my mother, I said, well, look, Mom, you let me know if you have any other problems with this particular person, and I will investigate. And what I mean by investigate is I'll start with sending an email off to the administration of the home and just say, very nicely, this is what my mother tells me. This is what I'm concerned about. I'm not sure, maybe you could check into it. And I know they will check into it. If I hear more than that and we see what happens from that, I will go in and speak to somebody about this person. I'll speak to this person myself if I have to. I'm not shy about going in and dealing with people who I feel are not doing what they're hired to do, or if there's a problem. I have to advocate for my mother. She can't advocate for herself. I have to look after her. And I mean, I want to do it in a very, unobtrusive, is that the word, way. I don't want to go in with both cannons firing, okay? Because I'm working with a minimal amount of knowledge here. Basically, it's what my mother says. And there are times when what my mother tells me is not the absolute fact. So I have to take that into consideration. Also, I have to take into consideration that these people have a really difficult job. I would want to do it. And, what my mother's saying about being rough treatment, maybe this particular person didn't realize that was a little hard on my mother or whatever. I don't know. So I have to investigate this and then find out. But, you hear the horror stories in the newspaper about elder abuse in seniors' homes and things like that. And some of those people don't have anybody to advocate for them. So, they're left at the whims of somebody who's not particularly suited to that kind of job. So I don't want that to happen to my mother. So we'll see. Okay, I'm not that worried about it at the moment, but I'm just keeping my ears open, my eyes open. And nothing else in this past week. Now, we've been a little antsy this weekend. I don't know why, because for us, every day is a long weekend. Every weekend's a long weekend. But we didn't do a heck of a lot this weekend, and Walter hasn't been feeling 100% lately. He doesn't know why. He just has really not a lot of interest in eating. He's felt a little nauseous. I don't know if he was getting something or whatnot. Seemed a little better the other day. And, you know, I have to admit too, food has not been exciting me lately. We look at each other and go, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. That's the conversation we have. I mean, Saturday night, we usually cook on the weekends, something. And when I say we, I mean Walter. But nothing was appealing to us. We ended up ordering a pizza. And last night, same thing. We had pizza left over. We had that. Now, on one hand, eating a little less isn't something that's really going to hurt me because I could stand to lose a few pounds. Okay. But yeah, it's just been very strange. So hopefully we'll get out of this little funk today because we're going to a party. So that's the excitement for today. We're going to a Canada Day party. I mentioned it last week. That we got invited to this, and I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll tell you all about it on probably on Stephen and Walter Live, and probably on the vlog next week as well, pending what happens. But we are looking forward to that. So maybe that'll give us a little bit, kick in the butt to get our acts into gear and get on with living and having a good time. May also because I said to Walter, yeah, it's a little early for us to get antsy about, going on a trip. Because when we get this feeling, it usually means, yeah, we need to go away somewhere. But we just got back, really, just a couple of months ago from Australia and the whole bit. We don't have any major trips planned right now. Now, we are doing a long weekend kind of thing in a couple of weeks' time on my birthday. And we're just going to some towns that are west of us to, hit some quilt shops. And we've got tickets to the theater in a town called Stratford, which is famous for its Shakespearean festival every year. But we're not seeing Shakespeare. We're seeing Little Shop of Horrors. I love Little Shop of Horrors. The movie, the plays. I've seen it in play version before too. So we got tickets for that for a Sunday matinee. And looking forward to that. So that's kind of a little weekend getaway thing. So I guess it's because the weather's been so nice lately. Not a lot of days of nice, but we've had some nice days. And I'm looking out my window right now. It looks like today is nice, but I thought they were predicting rain for today, which is a bit of a bummer because I'm assuming that this party we're going to is outdoors barbecue style kind of a thing. And if it pours rain, I don't know if they have a big covered deck or anything like that, because I've never been to this particular location before. So that would put a damper on things. But hopefully it will be nice today. And I think when the nice weather hits, and especially for us as Canadians, we don't have much of a summer in this country, really. July and August are our summer months. And so that's not a lot, like 60 days of summer, okay, in some ways. And so you'd like the weather to be nice every one of those days because then suddenly you wake up, it's the fall, and it's dreary and moist and just not pleasant anymore. And so, we go back into hibernation. So I guess right now for us is we want to do something. When the weather's nice, you want to do something. So we'll see. Anyways, this party should be a scream, I'm hoping. And I think that's about it. So we'll be on live again next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my vlog will be next Monday as well. And I hope you have a great week. Again, happy Canada Day to all the Canadian viewers. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.